I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
My name's Jake Fromm. My favorite baseball player is Dylan Strickland.
All right, so in today's episode, for the majority of the time, we're going to talk about our top 5 quarterback prospects for the NFL draft this year. We each create our own list, and we're going to go through 1 through 5 and compare and contrast and say what we like about the players and what we don't like. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about some big NFL news, or relatively big, considering what we have going on. The Rob Gronkowski trade from the New England Patriots to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so to get into it, it's Rob Gronkowski and a 7th rounder to the Buccaneers for a 4th round pick to the Patriots. So Rob Gronkowski has a $10 million cap hit this year. He has a $9 million base salary. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent next year. I'm actually really surprised by this move. I think I was in strong belief that Rob Gronkowski really was never going to come back to football, and not only because he really slowed down significantly his last season. He went out on a great note. That catch, his last catch of his career up to that point, was really a game-winning catch to win the Patriots the Super Bowl right at that goal line. I think this really speaks volumes to the Patriots, this move. The first thing I thought of was, did he want out of the NFL or did he want out of the Patriots organization? So I think that is a question to raise. But it'll be really interesting to see him with Tom Brady.
Yeah. I think it's like I saw reports saying like Brady wants Gronk in Tampa Bay, and like it happened instantly. So I think you see that Brady has some power with the front office there because they want to make him happy. But I think it's a pretty good move for the Bucs if they are willing to like limit his role. I don't think they should really run him into the ground. I think they should use O.J. Howard or Cameron Brake a lot too, just to keep the weight off Gronk's back, and maybe do like an Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski type deal when they have like 2 tight ends on the field, really open things up. But I think it looks like the Buccaneers are in win now mode, and they're trying to ramp up and add weapons around Brady.
Yeah, I saw Calais Campbell, old defensive end for the Cardinals, tweeted out, "All I know is that Rob Gronkowski is going to love Bruce Arians." So that's going to be a great pairing too. They both have really colorful personalities.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun to see. I just really thought that Rob Gronkowski was going to stay retired. Another reason, because he loves retirement. He seems to love the retirement life. He always has, even when he was an NFL player. He loved partying, loved doing stuff like that. I know he's big into CBD now, big CBD spokesman. He could probably continue that now with the more lenient laws that the NFL has, but I'm really excited to see Rob Gronkowski back in the NFL. He's such a fun player to watch. I know a lot of Patriots fans are really sad right now.
Yeah.
And Julian Edelman's very sad right now as well. But
Brady,
really excited to see Gronk.
Brady probably just made one hell of a pitch to get him on the team, get him out of retirement.
Edelman got left behind.
Yeah, poor Edelman. They're going to bring in Amendola next, maybe. Get the old band back together.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a little discussion about that out of the way, so let's get into our the meat of the episode. So we're going to do our top 5 quarterback prospects for this year's NFL draft. So since I went first, last list, do you want to go first for this one?
Yeah, I'd love to go first. I'm going to hold the honorable mentions till the end of the video. So going into my number 5 quarterback, now a little disclaimer before me and Sam get into our lists. I think me and Sam both on these lists, we're not predicting who's going to go in order. We're predicting who the best quarterback is 1 through 5. And I would actually strongly bet against my top 5 being the order they get picked. I really don't think they're going to get picked in the order in which I have them for a various amount of reasons. So without further ado, my number 5 quarterback going into this draft class is going to be Jake Fromm out of Georgia. Now, Jake Fromm, I kind of compared him a little bit to a Jimmy Garoppolo. He reminds me of a quarterback in the NFL who is going to push the bus and keep the bus going. And that means he's a game manager. He's going to make the throws when you need him to make the throws for the most part. But with Jake Fromm under center, you're going to win by having a really good team around him. And you're going to win by having a really solid run game and passing as a complement to a run game and not the other way around. Jake Fromm was really, really impressive at Georgia in terms of accolades. He was a true freshman. He went in and beat out Jacob Eason, who I know a lot of people have inside of their top fives. He then the next year beat out the number one recruit in the nation, who is Justin Fields, really good quarterback out of Ohio. He's probably going to go top 10, top 15 next year in the NFL draft. So getting into Jake Fromm a little bit, I really didn't think he was a top 5 quarterback going into my evaluations, but once I turned on the film, I was a little more happy with what I saw. I think he has better arm talent and a better arm, a stronger arm than people give him credit for. He still doesn't have this wow, eye-popping arm. You see him throwing shorts and a t-shirt, and he's going to absolutely wow you. I know he didn't have the best NFL combine. That kind of worried teams, but that's just kind of for the glamour of it. Everybody knows who these quarterbacks are by now. They shouldn't have to watch a pro day or an NFL scouting combine to get to know these prospects a little bit more, because throwing in shorts and a t-shirt is very deceptive. If you watch Lamar Jackson throw in shorts and a t-shirt, you think he would be the worst quarterback in the NFL. And if you watched somebody like Josh Allen throwing shorts and a t-shirt, he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. And quite the opposite is true. Now, Josh Allen is not the worst quarterback in the NFL by any means, but Lamar Jackson is the best right now. You can make the argument. But anyway, getting back on Jake Fromm, he has a really, really quick release. Arguably my favorite release in the entire draft. His release is very similar to Joe Burrow's. He has pretty good pocket sense. He's good at stepping up and out of the pocket. Since he doesn't have the best athleticism, which is a question mark. You want a more athletic quarterback in today's era. He is still good at moving up and in and out of the pocket. He doesn't step out when it's a bad time to. Didn't take too many sacks at Georgia. He's pretty good. He's much better than I thought he would be at off-platform throws and not having his feet set but still throwing. So I was a bit more impressed with that than I thought I would be. And another accolade, just to read it off, he went into Notre Dame his freshman year and won. So the lights are not too big for Jake Fromm. That's not going to be a question going into the NFL. I'm not confident in Jake Fromm being a day one starter. I'm not even confident in him if he steps into a starting role at any point in this upcoming season. But I think he could be a really, really good backup, a high-end backup in the NFL. And I think he could potentially start down the road, but he's going to be a project, but a really good backup and a good quarterback to have in your quarterback draft room.
Yeah, alluding to what you said about him being a backup, I think like with the 5th spot, like I think the top 4 in the group of their own, and the 5th spot, you're looking at someone who might be a career backup or
for sure,
or a journeyman throughout their career. But Jake Fromm is someone that I was considering for my 5th spot. I just really like Jake Fromm. I like what he's all about. He's a great leader.
Yeah.
He doesn't really give up. He knows he's not bringing the most to the table, but he just tries his best every game. Like you can see that in the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma his freshman year, he was down and they came back and won that game. But with his lack of arm strength, he really knows he really alters his game to be able to anticipate routes and have a high IQ and know like when to throw to the receiver or not, because he has the lack of arm strength. I think, he has quick feet and quick release, like you said, but he's just someone you don't really know what makes him good, but he just has that that it factor and that determination to get him far in the NFL.
Yeah, I just think one real quick note. I think the difference between the 5th quarterback I would rank and the 10th quarterback I would rank is probably closer to the 5th quarterback I would rank in the 4th or 3rd. That's how kind of far off it is. I think there's kind of a pretty concrete top 4 quarterbacks going into this year's draft class. And then 5 through 10, 5 through 15 are kind of viewed as project quarterbacks, career backups, and maybe they could start later down the road.
Yep. So with my 5th quarterback prospect, the man that Jake Fromm beat out of town, I kind of hinted at there by saying Jacob by accident. But I have Jake Eason out of Washington, formerly out of Oregon. I mean, not Oregon. Freaking I'm messing up everywhere. Georgia.
Yeah.
Jacob Eason, he's just huge. He's huge. I believe he's 6'6". He could be bigger, but he's the prototypical pocket passer. He has a great arm. I think he has one of the best arms in the whole quarterback draft class. He's tall and strong, so if when a rush is coming to him, that he won't be able to go down easily. He had great ball velocity, so really can throw it in there. But a lot of his weaknesses come back to his great arm and his ball velocity. He doesn't have a lot of great touch with the ball.
Yeah.
Often he overthrows the receiver. He has poor ball placement. I watched a lot of film, and when he was rolling out, and he had an easy like a dump off pass, he kind of like threw it to the right shoulder, the left shoulder, and it kind of messed up the whole flow of the play and didn't allow the receiver to get as many yards as he could get when he caught the ball. I think what would have benefited Jacob Eason is maybe staying for his final year at Washington. I think you got to scrap some stuff up. I mean, cut some corners and not cut the corners, like shave up his game to make him a better prospect than he actually is. Because like an arm like that, it can really benefit him in the NFL. But I think he has to polish up his game a lot.
Yeah, something I worry about with Jacob Eason a little bit, and the reason why I left him outside of the top 5 is because he's a bit of a statue in the pocket, and the NFL game is starting to gear towards the more mobile quarterback, not a running quarterback, but a quarterback who can run to extend the play. That's a very important distinction to make. But again, Jacob Eason's a bit of a statue in the pocket. His pocket movement isn't that great, and you did just say he's not that good with throwing off the platform throws where his feet aren't set. So that is a bit of a concern for Jacob Eason. That's why he just missed my top 5, but he's another prospect who could be a career backup potentially.
Yeah, I think that's why Jake Fromm might be better in that category than Jacob Eason, because Jake Fromm has a background in baseball. Like, he played in the Little League World Series, so he's used to being able to throw like kind of sidearm and off angle.
Yeah, that baseball background is really, really helpful. And you see a lot of not only the top prospects, Joe Burrow, for example, and even Justin Herbert played baseball, but you even see some of the best quarterbacks in the league, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes. They have that baseball background. So not only do they have that great arm, that really quick release, but they could throw on the run as well. So that baseball background and just that sports background in general is becoming more important for quarterbacks. So getting into my number 4 quarterback, I'm going to have Justin Herbert out of Oregon. And he reminds me a lot coming out of the draft of Josh Allen, but I think even Josh Allen was a bit more accurate with the football at Wyoming than Justin Herbert was at Oregon. So that's definitely a cause for concern. Now, you turn on the tape of Justin Herbert, meaning his pro day and his NFL combine, he's the best quarterback in the draft. He has incredible arm talent. He has such a strong arm, but that's something to try. You can't fall in love with that, him throwing in shorts and a t-shirt, because again, football is played with pads. So once you really start to watch Justin Herbert at Oregon, it really gives me a cause for concern. I know a lot of people have him as their number 2 quarterback. I'm sorry, but I really don't see him as the number 2 quarterback of any draft class. He has a decent release, and he has decent ball quickness coming out of his hand. Nothing really special there, nothing to really note. He has okay accuracy. Something that's so frustrating out of Justin Herbert is you'll see one play, he makes an incredible NFL level throw, and then the very next throw, he'll throw it 10 feet above his wide receiver. So he's very inconsistent with his accuracy. He's shown flashes of being extremely accurate, but he's shown flashes of being just another Mitch Trubisky in a sense, of being just very inaccurate and not even being able to throw 5-yard outs. He has slightly below average decision making. I saw he kind of stuck on to his first read a lot of the time. He's good at making off-platform throws, that I will give to him. He's really good on his feet, and he does have a lot of potential. I think Justin Herbert needs to go to a team that really is going to coach him up. But the number one concern I really do have for Justin Herbert, because with all these concerns I have with him, just still his tape and his physical potential and what he showed at Oregon, I think that would be enough to make him a top 2, top 3 quarterback in the draft class. But there is really a real concern surrounding Justin Herbert on whether he loves football or not. He grew up in Eugene, Oregon. He played football at Oregon, which is in Eugene, really never left the city, never left the state except for playing football. Rumor has it he didn't even look at his draft stock last year when he returned. He was going to be a top 15, top 20 pick arguably last year in the draft. And supposedly he had no idea that was the case. He just right away wanted to return for his senior season. And that kind of suggests to me he loves playing college football and he loves being a quarterback at Oregon. Not necessarily he loves being a quarterback in general and he loves football in general, because I think if that was the case, he would have gone to the NFL right away. And you can make the counter argument, oh, maybe he just wanted to polish up his game. This is my number one concern surrounding does he love football or not. It's all speculation, and it's unfair for me to say and to even question his love for football, but his love for football and lack thereof really shows up on tape, and that's when it starts to become a problem, because he's been the quarterback at Oregon for the past couple of years, and he has not improved one single bit. All of his strengths are still his strengths. All of his weaknesses are still his weaknesses. So if he hasn't really improved at all, when I see a guy like Jacob Eason, he has improved, and he has shown improvement over the years. That's where I start to question, was he even working during the offseason at his footwork and things like that? So that's where I am worried with Justin Herbert now. A good thing about Justin Herbert, he does have that great arm talent. He can make any NFL throw, hypothetically. And he is the most mobile quarterback in this draft class as well, who are in the top 5. So that's a really good thing as well. But there's just a lot of questions for Justin Herbert for me. I think he could potentially be a starting quarterback, but I could see him potentially being out of the league in a couple of years like a Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, I won't go into a lot because I have him a little higher up on my list, but I just think once he gets to the NFL and gets some proper coaching, I think he was coddled a lot in Oregon with his coaching. I think they dumbed some plays down for him, but I think if he got some tough love from an NFL coaching staff, I think that would really benefit him.
Yep.
So for my number 4 prospect, I have Utah State's quarterback Jordan Love. And I just want to preference saying, I think between 5 and 1, I feel like those 3 quarterbacks like Love, Herbert, and Tua, I think they can fluctuate a lot with what position you have them in.
Absolutely.
So I just want to preference that. But
Jordan
Love, he's very tall and has a large frame. He has a really, really natural throwing arm. And it's a rocket. He can throw anywhere on the field from hash to hash, deep down the sideline. He can scramble well with buying time, so he's well with his mobility. He can make throws on the run because of that, his good arm and his mobility. And he can also throw at a variety of different arm angles. And you see his sophomore year, not his junior year, he took a little bit step back from his sophomore year, but his sophomore year, they went, I think, 10-2, and I don't know if they won the bowl game or not, but they had an incredible season. He had insane stats. He played really well that year. Some of his weaknesses are because of that step back of production. Some people that say that, without a good coaching staff, he's not going to be able to really produce, or without people around him, he won't produce. But I feel like that's something that's similar to a lot of quarterbacks. If you don't have the right weapons around you, you're not going to be that good. Throughout the year, he had 17 interceptions, which might be a red flag.
Yeah.
And 6 multiple interception games, which that's a concern. But I think with the lack of weapons around him, I think you can't put the blame on all the interceptions to him. A lot of them might be the receiver's fault or the lack of blocking. He just has to, or if the team's down big, he has to just throw it up and make something out of nothing. He doesn't have great placement with the ball, and he escapes the pocket too soon. So I think there's just something that if he gets the right coaching staff, and I think if he sits behind a seasoned veteran for a couple of years, that can really help him.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too into Jordan Love because I have him a little bit higher on my list, but I do think he has some of the similar red flags that Patrick Mahomes had coming out of college. Gets out of the pocket a little bit too much, relies on that cannon arm a little bit too much. But if Jordan Love's coached up, he arguably has the most potential in this draft class, even above Joe Burrow. I see a lot of people saying. So that is something to know. And I will get into Jordan Love a little bit later. But with my number 3 quarterback in this draft class, like I said, 2 through 4 can kind of fluctuate. It's based on personal preference. And my number 3 quarterback is going to be Tua Tagovailoa coming out of Alabama. And I see a lot of people saying, oh, a healthy Tua would be a number 1 pick and Joe Burrow would not be the number 1 pick. He would be the second best quarterback in the draft class. Or oh, a healthy Tua would give Joe Burrow a run for his money. I don't think that's the case at all, honestly. I think Joe Burrow is really in the upper echelon of not only quarterbacks in this draft class, but talent in this draft class. So I don't even think I would have a healthy Tua at number 1. I would probably have a healthy Tua at number 2, but I do have some concerns besides his injury concerns. I'll get into the injuries first a little bit. He's had a broken left finger. He's had a sprained right knee. He's had a left high ankle sprain and a right high ankle sprain. And then most recently, he had that really, really bad hip injury. So that is really something that I know concerns me and concerns a lot of NFL franchises. And just watching Tua, even if he didn't have that hip injury, he has the play style that would suggest he would get hurt in the NFL. Not that he's this mobile quarterback that's running every other down, because he's really not at all. He has good mobility. I would compare his mobility to like a prime Aaron Rodgers or a prime Alex Smith type mobile quarterback, where he really uses his mobility to extend the play. And he's really good at that, Tua is. And he can run and pick up 10, 15 yards when he really needs to, when there is an open field. So I really like Tua's mobility. He has kind of the ideal mobility that you would want out of a pocket quarterback in today's NFL. But his pocket presence isn't as good as I thought it would be. Alabama had a great offensive line, but when he did get pressure, specifically edge pressure, instead of stepping up into the pocket, which he did do sometimes, I saw too many times he tried to escape by really just booting out left or right. And in the NFL, the edge is going to get you right away. And I saw even in college football, the edge rusher was able to get him and lay a big hit on him. So just his durability and his ability to avoid hits is just a huge, huge concern. He looks small when he plays at Alabama. He really does. And that's not even saying his height, just he seems to get swallowed up into the pocket sometimes when there's a lot of interior pressure. So that is a huge concern. Another concern is just the lack of NFL qualities we've seen him just show at Alabama. And that's not something I could flag him for, because that's not his fault. That's just because he played at Alabama. But a lot of the times we didn't see him make 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he hits his 4th wide receiver on a read. We didn't see that a lot because we saw a lot of one read throws from Tua, which is understandable. But getting into some of Tua's good parts, I think he has a pretty good arm. He has pretty good arm talent. I think he has arm talent comparable to Joe Burrow in the sense of his velocity. He has a great release, very quick release. The ball comes out of his hands very fast. Some could even say it explodes out of his hands. And he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks you could find. He's so accurate with the football, and that really is a good thing. But I think his pocket presence, again, I got into it a little bit. It's not that good. And I think his ability to throw off platform is a little bit overrated. I turned on the tape and I wasn't really that impressed with his throws on the throws in the pocket where he couldn't perfectly set his feet when he did have pressure right in his face. I doubt his abilities to, you see a 300-pound D tackle. Are you going to step into the throw, or are you going to step away from the throw and have the ball sputter a little bit? So I think Tua, if he could stay healthy, he could be like a really, really good version of Alex Smith potentially. But I don't see all the hoorah that is surrounding Tua. I know Nick Saban just said if you're passing up on Tua, that's like passing up on Drew Brees. I don't see it that way. I think his injury concerns are really real. I think if a team drafts him and he ends up not having a long career because of injury, that could cost a GM their job. So if I was a GM, I would personally stay away from drafting Tua, but he is a really good prospect still. He would be my number 2 prospect if he was healthy. Extremely accurate with the football. There's just too much concern for me.
Yeah, I am high on my list, so I'm not going to go into much. But a lot of the points you made I agree with 100%. I think the injuries is a major concern, but I think some of the other setbacks of the other quarterbacks might push him a little higher for me.
Yeah.
So for my number 3 quarterback, I have Justin Herbert, the person you had at the quarterback you had at number 4.
Yeah.
He just has great arm strength. He can throw with some of the best. He can have similar to Jacob Eason or Jordan Love. When he's on, he's really on, which is kind of a red flag because he has that off. He's on and off. It's really hot and cold. But when he's on, he can fit in. He can fit the ball in extremely tight windows, NFL type windows. And he can have great touch with the ball when he's on. He has great mobility. I would argue that he has the best mobility out of the quarterback
I agree with that. Yeah.
But his weaknesses are, like I said, kind of the offense was kind of dumbed down for him a little bit. He was late on a lot of the reads, so a lot of the plays were just one read throws, so he knew who to throw to. Kind of in some games, his ball placement was really poor, which caused the wide receiver to get crushed, which would frustrate a lot of people when they're watching him.
That's a good point.
Like he would wait to throw the ball before the wide receiver broke away from the cornerback, and he would delay his process, which would have the wide receiver catch up to the safety. Sometimes he puts too much power on the ball, and when he's off, he's extremely off, which is pretty worrisome. But like I said earlier, I think if you get him a good coaching staff and on a roster with a veteran quarterback, that would really help him. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen with the veteran quarterback because he's likely to go to the Dolphins or the Chargers. So he might be thrusted into a start right away scenario, which might be worrisome for his career.
Yeah, I think you talking about Justin Herbert and me just kind of reviewing all these quarterbacks and how we've been talking about them, I don't think either of us are that confident in any other quarterback except our number 1. I can kind of see this draft in terms of the quarterbacks being like a 2011-esque draft where you had Cam Newton at number 1. He was the solid number 1 pick. He was that can't-miss prospect. And then the next first-round quarterbacks, you had Jake Locker, you had Blaine Gabbert, and then you had Christian Ponder. So I could see the draft being similar to that in the sense where the next couple of guys are shaky. Hopefully all those guys don't have careers like Jake Locker, Blaine Gabbert, and Christian Ponder had. But me even mentioning the 2000 draft really highlights how unconfident I am in this quarterback draft class. I don't think this is the best quarterback draft class. I think 2018 was better. I think you can argue that last year's was better. And I just don't see any of these guys except my number 1 being day 1 starters, stepping into training camp, being the no doubt starter. I don't see that out of any guy except the number 1. So that is just something to mention.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are saying this draft class is elite and whatnot, but I just don't think it is. I think it's once you actually look at the players and look at their film, they're not, besides Joe Burrow, they're less than spectacular.
Yeah, for sure. They all have their flaws. And even Joe Burrow, not tape-wise, but does still have some concern that I will get into. But at my number 2 quarterback, it's a quarterback you already had. I would have him at number 3 if Tua didn't have all these injury concerns. But still, I think they're much closer than people think. So I will have Jordan Love, who is the quarterback out of Utah State. You already made some really good points about him. Just to kind of differ from that, he has such a special arm. he's so special when he's rolling out of the pocket and he could just whip a pass for 50 yards right on the dot. That's so impressive. Something that really impressed me about Jordan Love, you talked about how Jacob Eason has such a great arm, but he doesn't know when to turn that firepower arm off. Something that an NFL quarterback needs to do is he needs to know when to put 50% on the ball or 100% on the ball. And Jordan Love is just absolutely great with that. I've never really seen a guy with such arm talent be able to really float the ball up and have such precision in his passing as well. So that's really good with Jordan Love. His decision making is definitely a cause for concern. He's not the best decision maker. He's one of those quarterbacks who tries to do too much sometimes when the pocket's collapsing and he has no wide receivers open. Instead of throwing the ball out of bounds, a lot of the times he'll just kind of throw it up, which is not good. So he definitely needs to go to a team like a similar Chiefs situation like with Patrick Mahomes, what happened, where I don't think he's NFL ready just yet. I think he still has a lot of growth to do. And I think he needs to be able to process defenses faster. And that becomes even more of a concern once you're jumping to the next level. So if he sits a year behind a quarterback like Phillip Rivers with the Colts or like Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers or even goes to the Patriots or goes to the Buccaneers, if he goes to a team like that where it's a good organization, they're going to have patience, they're going to develop him, I think he could be a really, really good quarterback.
Yeah, I think his talent's out of this world. I just think that you have to get him in the right spot. And I saw that a lot of the experts saying the Colts should draft him. I mean, I would like having him on the Colts to sit behind Rivers for a couple years, 1 or 2 years, because obviously Rivers is up there in age, so he's not going to be there for a lot, like 4+ years or 2+ years, and Phillip Rivers is dropping off a little bit. So I think once Phillip Rivers has his 2 years to shine, you can get someone like Jordan Love in there who learned behind him and really develops his skill more.
Yeah, and another quick note right before you start on your number 2 quarterback, Jordan Love, I think if he's thrusted into a position like the Dolphins where they have a pretty good roster, they only need that quarterback and they want Jordan Love to be their number 1 day starter, I think he will struggle. And I think that might stunt his growth and he could potentially never end up being a really good quarterback in the NFL because of that. So I do think that is a cause for concern. Whoever drafts Jordan Love, please have a starting quarterback next season because I don't want to see him starting right away for the sake of his development. But again, I think he's really intriguing once you get into year 2 or year 3 of Jordan Love.
Yeah, definitely. So for my number 2 quarterback prospect, I had a Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama. I mean, originally I had Justin Herbert at 2. I considered having Jordan Love at 2. I think they fluctuate a lot, my thought process, but I decided to for my final list to have Tua there. He has a lot of his strengths. He's a very his skills are really refined. Like he has great drop back. His feet are great when he drops back and in the pocket. I think he has good movement within the pocket, not outside of the pocket. I think outside of the pocket, he struggles a lot. He tries to go for the run the ball a lot when he's outside the pocket, and that allows him to get tackled from behind because I think he overestimates his speed most of the time. Mm-hmm. And when he gets tackled from behind, that can cause a lot of hip injuries. I mean, not the hip injury and the ankle injuries. Mm-hmm. He has pinpoint accuracy. I think he has the best accuracy in the draft class. Yeah. And great touch with the ball, and he can just really spin the ball and place it in buckets when he has a clean pocket. I'll get into when it's not a clean pocket a little later. But his career at Alabama was outstanding. Won a national championship, played for another one, but got beat by Clemson. He just really had a solid career and was really productive. But his weaknesses are his injuries are a major concern, like you had talked about before, his hip, his ankles, his knee. But the biggest concern for me is when he feels the pressure inside of the pocket, he tends to throw off one foot or back foot or kind of turn his back to not get hit, which is a good thing and a bad thing because you don't want your franchise quarterback to get hit and be out for the year or a couple games. But then you think about he's kind of sacrificing making the better throw to save himself. And when he throws off his back foot or turning his back, he kind of throws it behind the receiver or kind of not in the right placement, which when he's at Alabama, it looks fine because he's throwing to like Devonta Smith, who's the number one wide receiver for next year, Jerry Jeudy, Ruggs. So they look fine in college football. But once he gets to the NFL and he's turning his back like that, it's going to be a tighter window. So it's not going to be a completion. His wide receiver is going to get hit because it's going to be tighter coverage. And it's just it will cause a lot of issue once he's in the NFL.
Yeah,
that's pretty much all his weaknesses.
Yeah, he is a guy who, if everything is going perfectly at the line of scrimmage, he's going to be a great quarterback. Even when his wide receivers are locked up, I think he does have that talent to fit the ball in a really tight window. He's really good at looking off the safety, then throwing to the other direction. So he's a really talented player. He knows how to play the quarterback position. I'm just really worried about he's not going to be at Alabama. He's not going to be playing with two top 25 wide receiver prospects, 25 in terms of where they're going to get picked in the draft, not of wide receivers.
Yeah.
Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy are probably going to go top 25 in the draft. So he's playing with those guys and playing his main target. You just touch upon him. He's probably going to be a top 15 pick next year. So not only will he have not as good of a wide receiving core, but he's for sure not going to have as good of a offensive line as Alabama did. So that is definitely a cause of concern for Tua. I'm really rooting for Tua. I hope he's really good, but if I was an NFL GM, I would not draft Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, and another thing with him throwing off his back foot and turning his back, he doesn't lead the receiver. So when they have to slow down or turn their back or turn their shoulder to catch that ball, it stops their momentum, and they're not going to be able to gain 25 more yards after the catch. They're only going to gain like 5 more yards after the catch because it slowed their momentum.
And see, in college football, that could be the difference. It could be the difference between a 5-yard gain after the catch and a 25-yard gain. But in the NFL, it could be the difference between a touchdown and an interception.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to really look at with Tua. So without further ado, I believe me, you, and every other person on this planet has this guy, number one. It is Joe Burrow, Heisman winner, perfect season coming at LSU. I absolutely love Joe Burrow. Now, does Joe Burrow, if you're picking an ideal number one overall in the draft quarterback, does he have that ideal arm talent? No, he does not. Does the ball absolutely just zip off his arm? Is he going to come into the NFL and have a top 5 arm in terms of velocity? No, he's not, but that doesn't really matter too much. In my opinion, I still think he does have slightly above average arm talent and arm strength to the point where he could still make every throw he wants to make. Another cause of concern for Joe Burrow, he did have that short sample size. He did only really have that one extremely productive season, but that productive season was the most productive and most efficient quarterback season in NCAA history. So that is nothing to be understated of. I absolutely love Joe Burrow. He is a really great quick release. He's a tremendous, just a next level NFL talent at processing defenses, which is more important than a strong arm. That's so important. He's so good at reading spacing and coverages. And the thing with Joe Burrow, which is so advanced and it's so rare to watch, is I watch LSU and I get the sense that Joe Burrow is not necessarily dissecting the defense and their coverage. He just reads where open holes are in the defense and just throws to a tight pocket. And you see guys like Patrick Mahomes, where he said in an interview recently, which I think is incredible, that his first 2 years in the league, he had no clue. He had no clue how to read a defense. Even that MVP year, he would just throw to the open guy, throw to the open space. So sometimes that really instinct and the ability to predict where open spaces are in the defense. Sometimes that's even more important than being able to read a defense. We saw that with Patrick Mahomes. And not only could Joe Burrow read defenses, but he's so good at just he sees an open hole and he hits it. So that's so impressive with Joe Burrow. He's great, absolutely great at throwing off the platform type throws. He doesn't need his pockets. He doesn't need his pocket clean necessarily. He doesn't need to get his feet set to still deliver a great ball. He will, unlike Tua, step into pressure, step into that huge defensive tackle, take that big hit, and still deliver a really great ball down the field. He's really good at extending the plays and moving around the pocket. And one other quick thing to note before I let you go, LSU, according to PFF, had the 30th ranked offensive line last year. So it wasn't like he just had clean pockets all day, every day. When I watch LSU, I was actually surprised to the amount of times Joe Burrow was under duress and under pressure, and how he really handled that was just incredible to me.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow is a pretty polished prospect. Like you said, his arm strength's not the best, but I think with all of his other abilities and traits, I think he makes up for the lack of arm strength. I think he has great football IQ. I think he knows when the receiver is going to be open, and he can anticipate when to throw the ball. And I would actually give him more credit at making at the line of scrimmage reads before the play, and know where the defense is going to set up. And he has lightning fast reads, so he can go from the first option to the second option to the third read, and really know how to throw the ball to be like, first receiver's not open, then go to the next one and throw it to the next one, or second one's not open, throw to the third one. Because a lot of the other prospects like Justin Herbert really stick on to their first read, which is an issue. He's great with those off-schedule plays. He can really ad-lib and make something out of nothing. And I think he's pretty accurate with his balls. Due to the lack of arm strength, he needs to become more accurate, which I think he became more accurate, which really makes his arm strength look better than it actually is. And I think he just had the best quarterback season of all time in college football, which is extremely impressive.
Yeah, and something that I think is a little bit understated with quarterbacks that I think is still really important is just Joe Burrow as a person, his personality. I think he's just such a great guy. I think he steps into an NFL locker room and players want to play good for Joe Burrow. Players want to play around Joe Burrow, and he is that leader type of guy. So I think that is really important. Not to say some of the other guys aren't, but Joe Burrow, really good guy, really rooting for him. And I do think he's really going to be a great quarterback.
So there's a list, but I just want to go into some honorable mentions, like you said earlier. I was really mulling Jake Fromm. I had him at 5 for a long time. I switched him with Jacob Eason. I think Jacob Fromm just has that it factor. I really hope he succeeds in the NFL because I really like Jake Fromm. And then also I had Jalen Hurts out of Oklahoma. I think Jalen Hurts is just a great teammate, a great leader, and he just works really hard. So someone like that, you really want to see him succeed in the NFL. I know he doesn't have the best arm or he can make the best throws, but he just works really hard, and you just want to see someone like that succeed. And his skill sets are similar to someone like Lamar Jackson. He runs a lot, and he kind of looks to run more than he throws, but I think there's a role for that in today's NFL. So you never know, 5 years down the road, you might see Jalen Hurts as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, and going off of your Jalen Hurts point, I really do like Jalen Hurts. I'm rooting for him, but something to go back with Tua, once Jalen Hurts left that national championship game and Tua stepped in, I mean, it was absolutely night and day. That's how good Tua is. He's such a good passer. Just significantly better like somebody like Jalen Hurts as a passer, but Jalen Hurts getting into him, he's an honorable mention for me too. I think he's just hovering around that 5 to 10 spot. I think he could potentially go higher than a Jake Fromm or a Jacob Eason that we had in our top 5 come draft day. That could happen. Something I really liked out of Jalen Hurts, I saw a big improvement from Alabama to Oklahoma to the Senior Bowl, and then from the Senior Bowl to his pro day and the draft combine. That is huge. I think Jalen Hurts loves football. Really good teammate. He's a guy, he could be a backup or even a third string and really be on the starting quarterback and tell him what he did right, tell him what he did wrong. I just think he's a great teammate in that sense, and you cannot go wrong with picking Jalen Hurts just from a person standpoint and a teammate standpoint. So a couple honorable mentions you did not mention. This guy was actually going to make my top 5 over Fromm and Eason, but last minute I kind of thought Fromm is better than this guy. And that's Nate Stanley coming out of Iowa. He didn't impress me too much, but he reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger in the sense that he is that really, really big guy, big, strong guy. He has a big presence to him, and he can make a lot of throws, but I think he's a project quarterback. Another guy, Cole McDonald, coming out of Hawaii. His game is really raw, and he's a redshirt junior, so he did have one more year of eligibility. He definitely should have stayed in the draft, but going into the NFL draft, he'll get drafted too. And then one more guy, Anthony Gordon, coming out of Washington State. He was Gardner Minshew's backup last year. He's not as good as Gardner Minshew coming out of the draft, but he's really similar in the sense of production and just his strengths and weaknesses. I think he's just a slightly worse version of Gardner Minshew in that sense.
Yep. So you want to? I'll just roll through my list real quick. So number 1, Joe Burrow. Number 2, Tua Tagovailoa. 3, Justin Herbert. 4, Jordan Love. 5, Jacob Eason. And then I'll give a tip of the cap to Jake Fromm and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. So my top 5, it'll be number 1, Joe Burrow. Number 2, Jordan Love. Number 3, Tua Tagovailoa. Number 4, Justin Herbert. And number 5, Jake Fromm. And a little shout out to Anthony Gordon out of Washington State. Like you said, Jalen Hurts and Cole McDonald coming out of Hawaii.
Yep. I enjoyed looking at these quarterbacks. I'm excited to see where they go in the draft come Thursday.
Yep, me too.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.